Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough, and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
Okay, Marianne, our guest, wow, the places she will take our audience today, unbelievable. I mean, we're going to go from children's pastor perspective to working with difficult people, whether or not it's in ministry or the office, to the seven dwarfs, to determining bad fits and introspection within bad fits. It's incredible. So let's camp out on that seven dwarfs for a minute.
Okay.
She will talk about personality types. And it's rather interesting. And you and I looked at this together. I've got it pulled up on my screen, the seven dwarfs personalities. And when we think through that, just to remind our people listening, we've got Doc, Dopey, Grumpy, Sneezy, Sleepy, Bashful, Happy. Which one do you fit? If somebody said, "Oh, Marianne, this is the dwarf that you are," who is it? And based on personality types,
I would say I'm a cross between Doc and Happy. I think I'm probably more Doc in some not so good ways. But I can be overly, I'm an extreme extrovert, and early years wasn't aware of my extrovertness to the point that when I would, introduce myself and greet people, the personalities would take steps backward when I would meet them.
Yeah.
So what about you?
I almost have to mix up two here, because as I'm reading, I've got several charts pulled up here. Doc, that's the one I thought I would go with in here. It says a self-proclaimed leader. I don't like that term, but that's interesting. That any leader, we suffer from the idea that we do think we have solutions. So we are self-proclaimed in some degree that we think we can lead this group or make a difference. But it says he often loosens his train of thought and bumbles around looking over the dwarfs. And I would combine Doc and Bashful because I'm an introvert. And so there's times I'm like, yeah, I'm a self-proclaimed leader, but I also don't mind following. I'm okay with that if there's another good leader there. In that. So I would do a mashup between the two of them. Okay, just for fun, let's go from quirky dwarfs to, and I don't mean quirky, sorry, to another area, Star Wars. You've seen the Myers-Briggs chart on Star Wars. What personality type are you, and what does that mean to our listeners that may not know the initials?
Yes, I am an ESFJ, an extroverted, sensory, feeler, judger. And that's not in the words. If you aren't familiar with the Myers-Briggs, we want to encourage you to go look it up, because it'll give you just a really good, it's not like what you think in general. There's reasonings behind each word. And so I am Jar Jar Binks.
Oh man, yes, I love it. Well, my initials are INTJ. I'm introverted, intuitive, thinking, and I don't like this one, but it is me. I am also judging. Man, the military in me causes the inspector to come out way more than I want the inspector to come out. And in the Star Wars, I am Palpatine. So I'm that. And then it's called the mastermind.
Get behind me, Satan.
You said your husband is an INTP.
Yes.
He's Yoda, the architect, So over there in that quadrant, it's interesting to see those quadrants and we tend to marry in the opposite quadrants.
Well, he did.
That's so interesting. Well, I tell you what, if this is of interest to you, we need to listen to Emily Snider. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to kind of walk through what we heard from Emily and her incredible wisdom on this. I think we could do an episode a month with her, tackling a couple of different angles on workplace areas, self-reflection. She never uses this term, but I think she's a brilliant emotional intelligence expert here on that. So let's listen to Emily.
Attention all parents and teenagers. Do you want to strengthen your relationship and deepen your connection with each other? Dr. Richard Ross and Dr. Gus Reyes have created an online app that can help you do just that. Download 30 Days Parents and Teens today. By dedicating just 10 minutes a day for 30 days, you can experience a transformational journey with your teenager that will bring you closer than ever before. You'll learn practical skills and strategies for communicating effectively, resolving conflicts, and understanding each other's perspectives. By connecting your hearts and minds during this 30-day experience, you'll build a stronger and more loving relationship that will last a lifetime. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to strengthen your bond with your teenager. The 30 Days Parents and Teens app is available in both English and Spanish. Download today and start your journey towards deeper connection and understanding.
Right now, I am joined by Emily Snider. Emily has been a children's pastor near Detroit, Michigan since 2006. In 2020, she and her husband Greg took on the role of family pastor to partner with parents in making disciples of the next generations. Emily is an INCM content contributor and has been contributing author with Children's Ministry Magazine, Kids Matters Magazine, and Group Publishing. Emily's passion is providing encouragement and solutions to ministry leaders. Emily, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're talking about, I think, a fun topic, maybe uncomfortable topic, I don't know, and that's working with difficult personalities.
Yes.
If you knew the people that I had to work with day to day, guys, am I right? Yeah, they're not going to throw anybody under the bus. No, this is an important topic. I will say the people I work with are great, both here, Kyle, Warren, Kaysen, great, but also people in the 9 to 5. But I have been in full-time ministry before, and I have worked with some very, very difficult people, and they won't be listening to this, so I can just throw that out there. But they've made life very difficult. So to start things off, I'm wondering if you can share a personal story about maybe having to work with that difficult personality.
Yeah. I have to pick one. I mean, no, I'm just kidding.
Let's see how much time we have.
No, I mean, we all come into contact with difficult personalities. And I think in ministry, we may just think of our coworkers as being people that we work with, but we also work with volunteers. We work with the people that attend our church. In family ministry, we work with parents. And so those can all, have different issues and difficult personalities. For myself, again, not going to throw people under the bus, but having difficult personalities, working with them, I've also noticed how I've grown myself and things that maybe I contributed to the problem when I was newer in ministry and didn't know how to work with a personality that was a little different than mine or, had a little trouble, that now looking back, I probably contributed to it myself.
Well, I know you've come up with 7 difficult personalities.
Yes.
Can you kind of give us a quick rundown of those 7? And maybe as we're listening, I kind of think, where do I fit in these 7?
Yeah, so I based these off of the 7 dwarfs.
Oh.
From Snow White. I think that, each of those dwarfs are named after, you have Doc, Happy, Sleepy, Sneezy, Bashful, Grumpy, and Dopey. And I think that defines them right there. Some different personalities you come up against to yeah, that's how I named them.
You've got me kind of thinking like which one I fall into, and I think there's like 3 of them. I'm grumpy, sleepy some of the time. Yeah, that's really interesting because I wouldn't have thought of doing that, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think we immediately think of like a difficult person as like, oh, they're grumpy or they're angry or they're hard to get along with. But a lot of times maybe they're difficult because of their work ethic, or because they're a little too excited or too wanting to take the lead too much, or maybe they don't put enough effort forward. So it's not always just like it's not always difficult like angry or grumpy. It's just difficult because maybe we work differently.
Yeah. Now, like, I'm an introvert, so could this even be like kind of the clash between introverts and extroverts? Because like sometimes I just want to be like, shut up and just give me some silence, please.
Absolutely.
Like, does that okay?
Yeah. Or I'm an introvert as well, and so I even know like pulling introverts. You have like bashful, right? It's one of the 7 dwarfs, trying to pull people out of their shell and getting them to contribute a little more.
Very interesting. Yeah, now I'm feeling conviction. Thanks a lot. Well, I know, and this is going to be especially true for introverts, but working with people with difficult personalities can often leave us feeling physically and emotionally exhausted. And when that happens, it a lot of times seeps into every aspect of our lives. How can we avoid feeling drained by difficult people?
A good nap. No, I'm
my
serious.
language, yeah.
I'm serious. I mean, Sundays, I know for me personally, Sundays are physically taxing after ministering all day and being on, so to speak. And so going home and taking that Sunday nap is a good reset for my day and reset for the week. But beyond just a nap, a Sabbath, a rest, making sure that you have that one day a week where you are off from ministering, off from working, where you're resetting yourself physically, mentally, spiritually, and also setting boundaries. So making sure that day you aren't taking calls, you aren't, working, and setting that boundary to have that time of rest.
For people that maybe people in ministry, people in business that have a tough time saying no, how can they set those boundaries without feeling guilty about it? Because that's something I hear from a lot of times, that people want to say they want to set their boundaries, they want to make sure they protect their time or they protect their Sundays, but then something comes up, somebody says, hey, can you do this, do this? Well, I feel obligated because I need to help them. Is there something that we can do without, because it feels like either we do it and we get drained, or we feel guilty for saying no? How do we balance that?
Well, I think we have to, we first look at Jesus. He took time to go away, spend time with the Father, to rest. If he needed a rest, then of course we do. If Jesus needed a nap, we of course need a nap. But also understanding, as a leader, you really have to have discernment in what constitutes an emergency and what can be taken care of during your work hours. People think that ministers are available 24/7. And a lot of times we are if it's a true emergency. But we need to have that discernment of, is this something I need to act on right now, or can it wait?
That's really good. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to see if Emily can diagnose what's wrong with me. So we'll be right back.
Splink is a simple way to help families in your church link together spiritually. It comes as a free weekly email with ideas that parents can use to have fun, make memories, and talk with their kids. Those teachable moments give moms and dads opportunity to share spiritual truths and life lessons. And no matter how busy life is, there's always time to Splink. Share d6family.com with the parents in your ministry so they can sign up today to start receiving free weekly Splink.
We're back, and we're talking to Emily Snider about working with difficult personalities. Now, I will say, I was kind of joking at the beginning, but I work with a wonderful group of people, both here doing this podcast, working the 9 to 5, just an incredible group. And I think part of that probably has to do with I work with Christians who have a great work ethic, that know what compassion and kindness and grace are. But then I also think, okay, am I working with great people? Am I the difficult personality? Because I think many people are not as self-aware as they think. We're good at pointing out the flaws of others. We don't necessarily see them in ourselves. How can we know if we are the difficult person?
Um, that's very true. I think for looking at ourselves, we need to surround ourselves with people who are going to be honest. We need to work with or have safe people that we can go to and talk to and even ask them, am I at fault here? Am I the one who's in the wrong? I think we can look at patterns in our lives and in our relationships with people. And if we tend to see the same issue creep up over and over and over again, then I think it's time to look at like what's the common denominator here? Am I causing this conflict? So looking for patterns, having people to talk to, and humility is key. Being able to look at ourselves and are we aligned with God's word? Are we walking, in the truth, and having those people that can hold us accountable is really important.
Well, I know that with any workplace situation, whether it's a business or whether it's a church, sometimes we tend to confuse a personality clash with someone being bad at their job. I mean, just because we don't get along, sometimes we just assume that they're a bad person. What are some ways we can determine if someone's truly not a good fit for the job, or if we're just butting heads because we process things differently?
I think you need to look at the heart of the person, obviously when we're Christians, we would hope that their heart is in the right place, their motives are in the right place, but maybe our values don't line up, our mission or what we're trying to accomplish in the ministry may not line up. They may have all the best intentions in the world, but it doesn't line up with maybe our church's vision or what we're trying to accomplish. And so it may be a thing of they're not a good fit because they may have a great work ethic, but our vision doesn't line up. So trying to find some place where they are a better fit. And then also, again, having those people around you that you can bounce ideas off of, talk to them, again, not in a gossipy way, but going to your leadership, going to confidants that you can, talk through these issues, if they're having the same problem or if there's a pattern of behavior, they can help you see that.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, because we're fallen people living in a fallen world, and that's just the reality, we're always going to clash with others in some way. How can we love and lead properly, especially when it involves those people that really get on our nerves?
Yeah, staying humble is key, knowing that we're probably the difficult personality to some people, and we all have quirks and flaws, and so staying humble and knowing that we're not perfect, but also seeing people the way Jesus sees them is really important. Seeing them with all those flaws and everything, and Jesus still loves them, and he still uses us, right, with all of those quirks. And so seeing people with Jesus's eyes is really important.
And finally, do you have a favorite of the seven dwarves?
Of just the seven dwarfs?
Yes, just the seven.
Oh, just Dopey. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love Dopey?
Does that... I feel bad asking this question now, but I was going to say, does your favorite dwarf align with what you think your personality is like? No, but with Dopey, I feel like I'm making fun of you, but...
Oh, I would say I'm probably more of a doc. Like, I'm going to jump in there and try and solve the problem, and I have all the answers, right? That's where I think my difficult personality comes into play. So that's probably why I don't like him. I'm like, I love Dopey. He's just so innocent.
He is a fan favorite. Well, Emily, I appreciate you being here and sharing this with us. I think this is something that we can apply not only in how we treat others, but how we think about ourselves, and realizing if we actually need to make some internal changes, because we are fallen people and we have, like you said, those quirks and the tough to live with personalities sometimes that don't always work. So thank you so much for sharing this. I think this is something that our listeners are going to put into effect right now.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'll tell you, the soundbite for me was, there were many, but the soundbite for me, and I have it highlighted, Post-it note moment.
Yeah.
Stay humble and see people the way Jesus sees them.
Ooh, yeah. Man, you know what? Stay humble and see ourselves the way Jesus sees us might also help us to stay humble.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I also love the discern what constitutes an emergency while protecting our non-work hours. I really like that. When we go back to our previous episode with Michelle and Denise and talking about that trash bag, this just reminded me of last week's episode. That idea, why am I spending work time? Just because I got an email doesn't constitute an emergency or 10 minutes of response time on me. And, I may need to protect that if I'm with family or doing whatever.
Mhm. I love that she dove into hiring
Mm,
and
yeah.
navigating hiring. I think in ministry, that's definitely, well, literally full scope. If you're working in the marketplace, if you are serving on a baseball team with other parents, whatever the capacity, you're engaging people in some form or fashion. And difficult people are always a part of the narrative. I will say this: don't underestimate how God wants to use difficult people in your life to cultivate something in you. I think
Mm,
sometimes I can miss that and get really zoned in on they're just difficult. And I kind of throw a fit about them being difficult. And I
yeah.
miss the opportunity that God's trying to cultivate something in me that
Yeah.
there's something I need to pause on. And why is this bothering me so much? Really?
That's
Is
right.
this really
That's
about them, or is this something going on in my heart?
Mm, that's really good. That's really good. Well, another part in there is determine a bad fit in that hiring process.
Mm.
And sometimes there's a personality. We talk about personality traits. Like, man, there are certain personality traits I do not enjoy being around. And when we hire, we tend to hire the ones that we feel the most comfortable with, but they may not fill the gap that's needed. So
Mhm.
I love what she said, determine patterns, not just single incidents.
Mm.
Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody has this one issue, but where are the patterns that we need to look at and begin to identify in there? Do people have humility? Have
Mhm.
people, do they have accountability to someone? And,
Mhm.
do we need that whenever we realize that we're bumping up against those toxic items that we're dealing with?
And do we have that? Like,
Yeah.
she really does this great dual she's going back and forth between the personal and the people. And so,
Yes.
do we have humility? Do we have safe people that are willing to call out our blind spots and our
Yeah. That's right.
personality and how, how we need to be, submitted in some areas and how we relate
Yeah.
to people. And, so I love that she's throwing out those questions and things to consider for others, but we've got to make sure we're personalizing and internalizing those ourselves. And
Yeah.
being aware, we've got to be aware of our own rough edges as leaders.
Yes. That's right. She said, look for those who get on your nerves, but do not forget that you also get on other people's nerves.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I never go on anybody's nerves. I can read body language in our rooms enough to know in some of our leadership meetings whenever I push the tension button with something I say, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I just ramped it up just a little bit there. And, sometimes we assume because we're the boss that, hey, we've got that liberty, but we don't. We've got to be graceful. We've got to be, while there's times we have that accountability, it does not give us license to run over others.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah,
Well, I'm
yeah,
so thankful for Emily and just her perspective and just great insight into navigating different people and an awareness to our own selves. So we want you to know we're praying for you specifically in the area of humility, that God would sow into each of you humility as a leader,
mhm,
and that there would be an awareness, a self-awareness, a spirit awareness to your own rough edges of your personality and how that impacts your organization, and then how to navigate and deal with the people in your ministry that you serve.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
until next week, our I'm very excited about our interview next week with Rich Griffith. And he is full of wisdom and insight about disciple making as you go. So practical.
Yeah.
Very excited about our conversation for next week. We hope you have a fantastic week. We are praying for you. Until next week.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.